I'm not one to follow trends or anything, but I decided to start writing this towards the end of the year and only got around to actually writing anything around early January. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, so let's not waste any time getting started. Here's my list of what I watched in the year 2020 and my opinions on them. I will only be talking about things that I saw for the first time this year or that I finished. I started off the year by watching the second half of BoJack Horseman Season 6. BoJack Horseman is one of my favorite animated series of all time and probably my favorite overall Netflix series. Without giving any spoilers, I knew going into this that this ending would be tense and assumedly depressing, but I was pleasantly surprised that the series finale was a lot more bittersweet than anything else. And for BoJack, I would not have things any other way. I was almost brought to tears several times during the final few episodes, and that's how things should be for this show. I can only hope that Netflix and other adult animated series in the future can learn from the things that this show did right. 10 out of 10. I saw Birds of Prey in theaters before theaters were no longer a thing. Margot Robbie just steals the show as Harley Quinn, and honestly my only real complaint is that this really isn't a Birds of Prey movie as much as it's a Harley Quinn movie that happens to have the members of the Birds of Prey. Ewan McGregor is hilarious and terrifying as Black Mask, and overall this is one of the funniest DCU movies, and I hope that this film and Shazam are examples of what's to come for the future of DC's live-action films. 8 out of 10. Next I saw Sonic the Hedgehog, and yeah, for what it is, I enjoyed this. The cast was genuinely hilarious, but Jim Carrey was just perfect as Robotnik, and I can only hope that the sequel is going to build off of the ending of this first film, and that we'll get a great movie that's actually more of a Sonic movie rather than just a road trip movie that has Sonic in it. 7 out of 10. Then I watched Netflix's Tiger King, and unsurprisingly, it is batshit crazy for 90% of the runtime. It's a pretty good documentary about a bunch of mostly horrible people doing horrible, stupid things. Not much else to say, it's Tiger King. You've probably heard everything there is to hear about this. 7 out of 10. In the early days of the quarantine, I was mostly trying to finish off series that I hadn't finished, so I decided to watch seasons 4 and 5 of Breaking Bad, and holy fucking shit, yeah, I understand now. Bryan Cranston's performance is terrifyingly moving and genuine, and seeing his arc from season 1 to the ending is heart-pounding. Breaking Bad is now undoubtedly one of my favorite series of all time, and the last 2 seasons of the series are some of the most tense and riveting seasons of television that I have ever sat through, and I plan on rewatching the series next time I need something longer to binge in a short period of time. 10 out of 10. I immediately followed that up with El Camino, the film that takes place directly after the events of the series finale. Aaron Paul is one of the many reasons Breaking Bad is such a great show to watch for more than just seeing Walter White, and the place Jesse was during the last 2 seasons, and especially the final half of season 5, was heart-wrenching, so finally seeing how his story wraps up is such a satisfying ending to the series, while still managing to be just as bittersweet as the original ending. 9 out of 10. Next up, I finally got around to watching HBO's Chernobyl, which is another edge-of-your-seat intense show that kept me glued to the screen during every single episode. Not much for me to say aside from this show chilling me to my core and setting a high bar for whatever HBO series I decide to watch next, and no, it is not going to be Game of Thrones. More likely to be something like The Outsider or His Dark Materials, as those are both series that I readily have available on Blu-ray, and I'm just waiting for the moment where I have several hours to drop on binging them. 9 out of 10. After that, I watched The Shape of Water, and I loved it. Not a ton for me to say aside from that I love Guillermo del Toro, and I watched this film way later than I should have. 9 out of 10. Next up, I watched Beastars, and yeah, consider me part of the hype for the upcoming second season because it cannot get here quick enough. I love the story, the animation, the characters, the world building, the lore, everything in this show just clicks and works on so many levels, and I can't take up too much time talking about it. Might have more to say on it in the future, but for now, I will just say that this was probably my favorite new anime that I saw this year. 9 out of 10. On and off again throughout the year, I watched Netflix's BNA from Studio Trigger, and I enjoyed it. Not much else to say about the overall series, but I am looking forward to the second season, and come on, it's Studio Trigger, the animation is fucking gorgeous. 8 out of 10. Of course, after finishing BNA, I moved on to the first feature film from Studio Trigger, Promare, and holy shit, this movie is the most visual eye fuck that I've ever watched, and I loved every second of it. The soundtrack goes along great with the visuals as well, but I'm glad to say that this film is not style over substance, as the story has several twists that change up and further the narrative, and the story itself is surprisingly deep with its themes of prejudice, although thankfully it's not heavy-handed or in your face, and you actually get to see the point of views of both those for and against those that are different or dangerous to society. I'm looking forward to whatever it is this amazing animation studio has cooking up next. 8 out of 10. Continuing the theme of my current anime binge, I watched Cells at Work on Netflix, and yeah, this really is the best possible outcome of mixing Osmosis Jones with anime. White and Red are probably my new favorite anime duo, and their chemistry is hilarious and playful without them even having to be remotely romantically involved. Not to mention that the biology in this is just super accurate, and the fact that I learned something while watching this just goes to show that. 8 out of 10. Then I watched Netflix's A Whisker Away, and while I mostly enjoyed it, the main character stalking her crush as a cat and being super upfront with him in person is straight up creepy to me, even if the film itself is charming. Not much for me to say, I'm a cat person, but not super into stalking your crush in the name of love. 6 out of 10. Almost done with the anime, I promise. I decided to watch something that I thought I might actually enjoy, so I watched Your Name for the first time. I am a sucker for a good fantasy fantasy or love story, and yeah, I love this one. The few twists in this film work super fucking well, and you do not see them coming the first time that you watch this movie, and the love story is actually not creepy or forced, and I didn't need a cute animal to keep me entertained between scenes of awkwardness. 9 out of 10. I followed that up with the director's next film, Weathering with You, another cute love story that's actually more of a focus this time, and that works in the film's favor. Once again, the fantasy elements in the movie just work super well and are one of the more imaginative takes I've seen on someone with elemental powers, but I don't want to say much more and risk delving into spoiler territory. 9 out of 10. Then the last anime for now, but certainly not least, was Agretsuko Season 3. I do not understand how a series based off of a character created by the same people who made Hello Kitty is one of the most down-to-earth and relatable stories I have ever seen in an animated series, but Agretsuko somehow tells a compelling story about a down-on-her-luck office worker looking for an escape from her depressing, mundane life. And of course, the characters around Retsuko are just as entertaining to watch and follow along, and god, I love this show. If a season 4 is on the way, then I cannot wait for it. 10 out of 10. After my anime binge, I watched Bad Times at the El Royale, which turned out to be a much more tense film than I thought it was going to be, and I loved every second of this. The entire cast was magnetic and entertaining, with the standouts of course being Jeff Bridges, Dakota Johnson, and Chris Hemsworth, who just stole the show in the third act and was genuinely a creepy-ass villain. Hearing him talk in a southern United States accent instead of his usual one was just super funny to me for no particular reason, and I loved his performance and everyone else's. 10 out of 10. Then I watched Transformers War for Cybertron, Siege, and Earthrise, and I'm just gonna throw them both on here because my opinions are exactly the same. Megatron is pretty great in Siege, and Earthrise actually adds even more depth to him, while Optimus in Siege is just fine, nothing special. Earthrise, he gets better. Most characters that were good in Siege either stay the same or get better, and anyone that was just fine gets a little better. Kingdom is supposed to have Beast Wars characters, so I'm just hoping that they get everyone spot on that they need to in that series. Not much else to say, it's a perfectly capable Transformers series. 7 out of 10 for the first 2 seasons. Next, I watched Hulu's reboot / continuation of Animaniacs, and yeah, this show is about as hilarious now as it was 30 years ago. It takes them 10 minutes to make an adult joke and a Trump joke, and I expect nothing less of Animaniacs. Missed having the show around to shine some humor on these topics that everyone seems to take too seriously these days. 8 out of 10. Then I watched Pixar's Onward far too later than I should have because I actually loved this movie. Tom Holland and Chris Pratt are just amazing together and some of my favorite actors right now, so maybe I am biased, I don't care. Typical of Pixar movies to be fun and inventive even when doing something that has been done by several other movies that probably did it worse. The entire cast here was great, of course, and the emotional beats of this film go about the way you'd expect for a Pixar film. You definitely have the potential to cry during this one, even if it's not almost as guaranteed as some of their other movies. Still a great film nonetheless. 8 out of 10. Following up that, I watched Soul on Christmas, and yeah, holy shit. Like most, I had my concerns going into this film, and like most, they basically disappeared after the first 15 to 20 minutes. Soul is probably one of the most mature Pixar films that ever come out, with its themes of living life to its fullest and taking every moment you can to enjoy the little things. Somehow making a movie that's actually about life instead of death seems even more like a bold move, and I hope that Soul is an example of things to come from Pixar in the next decade. 9 out of 10. Throughout December, I watched both seasons of The Mandalorian. Pedro Pascal is an underrated actor in my opinion, and him getting the lead role in a freaking Star Wars show is the perfect chance to let him shine. And it really shows with the scenes where it's just him acting opposite of the Grogu puppet. Aside from all the actors being great, the action scenes and effects are gorgeous, the settings are all great, the overall plot is slow-paced but not a snail crawl, and the only real complaint I have is probably just every couple episodes just really being filler, but even then the filler episodes are still entertaining. Looking forward to season 3, 9 out of 10. Towards the end of the year, I finally got around to watching Knives Out, and I genuinely loved it. The cast is great and hilarious, the several twists throughout the story are just perfect, most of the characters are just impossible to hate despite them all being, like, overall shitty people. I don't want to say too much and spoil anything because this is just an amazing and entertaining mystery thriller. 10 out of 10. I then watched the second My Hero Academia movie, Heroes Rising, and it was probably the best overall action-oriented movie I saw this year next to Promare, considering basically an entire hour of this movie is just action scenes, and that is not a complaint. Personally, I think I enjoyed this one better than the first, and I imagine that there's a third film on the horizon that's probably going to tie into season 6 or 7 because I guarantee that this series is going to be going for that long. 9 out of 10. After finishing the film, I watched the second half of MHA season 4, and it was a bit more laid back than the action-packed first half, but for the overall season, I loved it. I genuinely do love this show, and I am always looking forward to what the next season of the show is going to bring. Not much else to say, but I love the show and I love this season. 8 out of 10. And then from late 2020 to very early 2021, I watched the entirety of Steven Universe on HBO Max, including the movie and Future. Until now, I'd only seen seasons 1 through 4 of Steven Universe, but I finally got to finish the series and then see the movie and then see Future. I won't go on for too long about the show because I could genuinely just make an entire video on it that'd probably be about as long as this one. Love the series, love the movie, love Future, one of the best franchises Cartoon Network has put its trust in during the last decade. 9 out of 10 for the the entire series overall. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry for not having this video uploaded in like January or February, but I am working on some videos on the side, and I hope that I can have them done sometime between now and the summer, and I hope that I will be uploading a bit more this year. See you guys in the next video.